Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Engage 8 podcast. I am Josh with my co-host Mike. Today we are recapping week 8 of the NFL season all the way up until Sunday Night Football. We will recap Sunday night and Monday night on Wednesday's episode when we preview week 9 and recap this past week in college football. But we will start this recap off with Thursday Night Football. The Rams beating the Vikings 30-20. The Vikings have now dropped 2 in a row. The Lions curse continues. Teams are now 0-5 after playing them, so we'll see what happens with the Titans next week. They play New England, so something's got to give there. But Stafford gets his weapons back and looks a lot better in this one. 4 touchdowns, 1 pick for him. Unfortunately for the Vikings, the story here is they lose Darisaw for the season. That is a huge loss for them. I cannot stress enough. He is a great tackle. This Vikings line was really overperforming this year, and they've played great, and they've given Darnold a ton of time. Not having Darisaw in there is going to hurt Darnold a lot. Story of the game here, though, is no face mask call at the end of the game. It's a bad call, but I will say I don't think the Vikings deserve to win this game. They did not play well enough to win this game. You can't just go out there and say they had the ball at their own 4. Like, it's very hard to be like, oh yeah, if they get that call, they're gonna march down and score a 2-point conversion. I get being pissed. I would of course be really pissed too, but it's not a thing where it's not a Saints Rams where you make the call and the game is it's a completely different outcome. That's just not the case here. The Vikings offense really died in this one after those first 2 drives they took for touchdowns. It looked like they were really going to take control of this game early. I was very encouraged to see what they did early on in this game, and they really let up. Tough game for them, though. It's a short week for Minnesota. I think they will be okay, but losing Darisaw easily, in my opinion, makes them no better than 3rd in the NFC North. I think it's definitely Lions-Packers now with Minnesota at 3. The Rams, though, they're off the dead teams list. They weren't on the actual list. They were on the possible coming soon. They're off the coming soon list now. I think they have a chance to make a run here. They have at Seattle, Dolphins, at Patriots, Eagles, and at Saints in their next 5. They could definitely win 3 of those games, and that puts them at 6-6 going into their 13th game. So the Rams are definitely alive now. They get Puka and cut back, and now they just got to get back some of those O-line pieces, and they'll be in a good spot to make a little run here.
Yeah, big win for the Rams in this one to get back into contention. The Vikings started out this game strong on offense, scored 14 points on their first 2 drives, but in the end, the offense couldn't get it done, especially in the second half. There's a stat that on the Vikings plays 1 through 15 so far in games, they are first in yards per play, first in points scored, first in pass yards, 8th in rush yards, and 2nd in first downs. After those first 15 like scripted-ish plays, those numbers drop to 23rd, 21st, 26th, 27th, and 29th. So their offense, their offense has been good this season, but when they're in those non-scripted situations, their offense hasn't been as efficient. Sam Darnold struggled a little bit. Like you said, they lose Christian Darisaw. That's gonna hurt them. He's one of the better offensive linemen in the league. Justin Jefferson, he has a big game again, no matter what, and another primetime situation, 8 catches, 115 yards. He was great. They didn't run the ball great in this game, and like I said, that offense kind of just didn't have much going after those first 2 big drives. Even if they got the chance with the face mask call late, I still don't think they would have been able to get down the field. The Rams defense really stiffened up late. And the Rams offense with Cooper Kupp back and Puka Nacua kind of surprisingly playing coming off of IR. He had a phenomenal game. They thought he would maybe be limited before the game. It didn't really seem to be the case. He has 7 catches for 106 yards. Stafford was very good. 4 touchdown passes for him. And Kyren Williams continues to be phenomenal as the running back. He has 97 yards on the ground. He was great, and he had a touchdown reception as well. Sean McVay winning this game becomes the winningest coach in Rams history. So, congrats to him.
Yeah, congrats to him. But moving on here to the Lions, they win 52-14 against the Tennessee Titans. They absolutely beat the shit out of this Titans team. They barely had the ball on their own side of the field this entire game. The amount of short fields they have is something that I just really haven't ever seen before. It was very crazy. 4 takeaways in this one. We talked about before the game. The Titans do not turn people over, and they definitely turn the ball over, and the Lions are the opposite. They turn you over, and they don't turn it over. I think this was like one of the top and one of the bottom teams in turnover differential going into this week, and that showed here as the Lions win that turnover battle 4-0. Nowaski gets a pick early, Kirby gets a pick on a great jump, and then Amik Robertson, he didn't have his best game and hasn't really been phenomenal these past few games, but he has 2 punch outs in this one, and that carried the Lions. Lions had 190 punt return yards and 72 kick return yards in this game. They dominated on special teams. They either had a huge play on special teams or they forced a turnover, and that just kept giving them short field. And they cashed in 5 for 5 in the red zone. They were just on fire with the short field situations that they were put in. Khalif Raymond was fantastic for them. He could have had two kick return touchdowns or punt return touchdowns in this game. He only gets one. This is gonna hurt Golf stats passing yards wise because he only gets 80 yards in this game, but he still goes 12 for 15. He still gets 3 touchdowns. 6 different Lions score touchdowns in this game. Montgomery runs one in and passes one. Gibbs runs one in. Laporta and Brock Wright both get touchdown catches on National Tight Ends Day. Khalif Raymond, like I said, he had the return touchdown. He also had a touchdown catch, and then Amon-Ra also got in the end zone in this one. Calvin really went off for 118 yards in the first quarter of this game, but they quieted him down after that. He only had 30-something yards in the second through fourth quarters. Lions really struggled to get pressure in this game against a bad offensive line. That does scare me a bit. That's 2 weeks in a row now since they've lost touch. They absolutely have to trade for someone. I think there's a chance they trade for Josh Uche from the Patriots. He was a healthy scratch today. He's going to get traded. I think there's a chance the Lions are that team there. Or Arden Key from this Titans team, or Harold Landry from this Titans team. They got to go pick somebody off, or Zadarius Smith. They got to go get somebody. They're not going to get one of the top guys like Crosby or Garrett, but they need to go get somebody to fill that Hutch role as best as they can. They also didn't have Josh Pascal in this game. He had some sort of medical issue. He had cancer in college and he was at like a checkup or something and something came up, but he's fine, I guess. He's going to be back next week, but they definitely missed him in this game. Goff rolled his ankle a bit in this game as well. I hope he's okay. He didn't play in the fourth quarter because they were up by so much, but he rolled his ankle in the first quarter and he seemed all right after that. He was limping a bit, but yeah, the Lions are just on fire right now. They have the number one point differential in the league. They're fourth in scoring. They're seventh in points against. They've really been able to punish some teams. And beating good teams is one thing in this league. The Lions have done that since they went on that run, going from 1-6 to 9-7 or 9-8. They were beating good teams then. They beat good teams last year. They beat good teams this year. But what makes you a really, really great team is if you could beat the piss out of the teams that you're supposed to do. And that's what the Lions did here today. They killed the Titans, and now they move on to a huge game at Green Bay next week.
Yeah, big win for the Lions. I mean, 52-14, they dominated this game. Titans offense looked solid early with Mason Rudolph, but after that, the Lions defense forced turnovers. They were great, especially after that first quarter. Mason Rudolph, like I said, that nice touchdown drive, had a nice little touchdown run, got the ball to Calvin Ridley a lot early, but the Lions defense took over. Titans offensively, Brian Callahan, they haven't been able to do much all season. That continued, and the Lions just poured it on, put up 52 points, which is second most in Lions history. The record is 55 in 1997 against Chicago. You said, I think it was 6 total different Lions scored a touchdown. They had 5 different Lions score a touchdown in just the first half. They're averaging over 40-plus points in their last 4 games. We've talked about how great the Ravens offense has been, but this Lions offense has pretty much been right there with the Ravens offense in terms of points. They've been phenomenal, and like you said, their defense able to force turnovers. In special teams, they were great. Khalif Raymond, 90-yard kick return touchdown. Khalil Dorsey was great. He had the kickoff touchdown. Khalif Raymond ended up punt. They dominated in every aspect. Goff didn't have to do too much this game. Hendon Hooker is their second passer. We see David Montgomery get a 3-yard passing touchdown. So Ben Johnson continues to just have a massive playbook. I can't imagine how many pages it is, but the Lions offense continues to dominate.
Yeah, apparently they've had that play for a couple years now, so they've been waiting to run it out. They like to get they like to get cute when they get up, which maybe will bite them in the ass one day, but it also makes them the most fun team to watch, honestly. But maybe not today, but usually. All right, we'll move on here to the Texans beating the Colts 23-20. Richardson went 10 for 32 in this game. It just has not looked good for him. What was the start? It was like 2 for 15 or something. I didn't see.
It was 2 for 15 with like 4 drops. So
it was 4 drops. How many drops for the game?
A lot.
But I mean,
I don't have the exact number, but it was a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a valid excuse, but 10 for 32 regardless is a tough look. JT goes off in this one, though. He goes for 105. He helps this team a ton. Definitely gave them a chance to win this game. They definitely were in this game. We knew they were going to compete here, but very solid performance from the Colts defense. They bent, but they didn't really break. They forced a ton of punts. They forced that late turnover when the Texans were in the red zone to give themselves a chance. They almost returned it for a touchdown. That would have been sick. It was a crazy play there. Texans ran it fairly well in this game. Joe Mixon was solid. He wasn't anything crazy. Texans were able to march long drives a good amount, but they just kept settling for field goals. That's that bend don't break that I was talking about with the Colts defense today that really helped them in this one. We figured the Colts would compete, and I'm all for playing the young guys, but it's it's hard to imagine that they don't possibly win this game if Joe Flacco's like quarterback. I'm not saying they should do that, but
Joe Flacco's a statue. The Texans had pass rush the entire game.
yeah, that's fair.
The Texans had pass rush the entire game. He finished the game 10 for 32, 175 yards, a touchdown and an interception. The completion percentage is obviously it's a bad number, but multiple drops. He had a lot of great throws that were just broken up by the Texans defense, especially early. He started, I think, 1 for 5, and I think he could have completed all 5 of the passes. Um, Eric Murray for the Texans was phenomenal. This game had 3 pass deflections. Kamari Lassiter as well had 3 pass deflections, a couple on Alec Pierce on 50-50 balls, which we haven't seen him not get all season. But yeah, Anthony Richardson, he did struggle in this game. The completion percentage is a little skewed. The 2 plays that really upset me the most were the interception inside the own 10-yard line that just gave the Texans a touchdown late in the first half. It was a terrible throw by Anthony Richardson, but it was also a terrible play call by Shane Steichen. Just can't run 5 wide and then run 5 hitches and expect to get that first down. It was just a terrible play call in my opinion. And they ran basically the same play before, and he almost threw an interception. I don't understand why you don't just run the ball, finish the half, go to the locker room. It's a tie game. That just didn't make sense to me. For the Texans, they ran the ball well again with Joe Mixon. He finishes with 102 yards. Does have that, I don't know if it was him or CJ Stroud who got credited the fumble, but weird play late where they fumbled the ball and the Colts had a chance to go down the field. They do lose Stephon Diggs to a knee injury, which could be a little concerning. It did seem a little non-contact, but I don't think it was a torn ACL. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that is concerning for the Texans offense. Defensively for the Texans, their D-line was phenomenal. They were getting pressure on Anthony Richardson all game. Bernard Ryman, who's been one of the better left tackles in football, was getting beat all the time by Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. He was dominant in this game. Colts' run game was pretty solid throughout the game. They would just abandon it, though, for a while. Jonathan Taylor gets 105 yards and a touchdown. He's put up 90-plus yards against the Texans almost every time he's been able to play them. Josh Downs for the Colts was great again at a big catch for a touchdown, then had another big catch on a 3rd and long. That should have been a touchdown, but they put it down at the 1. Just a disappointing loss for the Colts. I think they were probably the better team overall in this game. Just some of the little things they couldn't get done, and the Texans know how to win games. Colts, I guess, just don't in this position. Disappointing loss. Anthony Richardson had some terrible moments. Had some moments where he looked all right. It's just you can't throw that interception. His accuracy was pretty good in this game overall, and the second play I wanted to talk about that I didn't was he had ran the ball 3 straight plays in a row, and it was like basically a 3rd and goal from like the 20-yard line, and he basically asked out of the game to catch his breath. Just can't do that as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
That was terrible. I thought he had the wind knocked out of him.
Tired.
Yeah, I thought he had the wind knocked out of him because it was a big hit, but can't do that. That's bad. Got to be better.
Yeah, and apparently Stephon Diggs, we don't have an update yet, but he's being evaluated is what is our latest update. So who knows what will go on there. But moving on here to the Packers being the Jaguars, 30-27. The story of this one is Jordan Love going down with a groin injury. He kept coming in and then falling down and going out of the game again. They're going to need him next week against Detroit. That's just an obvious one. Malik Willis has had moments this season, but you can see it. He's not Jordan Love, and they need Jordan Love, of course. Surprisingly, pretty good performance from the Jags offensively. They were able to march down back-to-back drives late in this game against a good Packers defense to give themselves a chance, and they were able to do that. Jaden Reed not getting a ton of targets recently outside of that big one that he had late in the game to go set up that field goal. He finishes with 55 because of that 51-yard catch, but he hasn't really done that much over the past couple weeks. The Packers offense has looked a little bit shaky recently. That's something to look at. We know Jordan Love throws touchdowns and he throws picks. Even in his 3 quarters of playing in this game, he does throw a pick and he does not get in the end zone, but they're going to need to tighten some things up offensively, keep playing through Josh Jacobs because that's when they're at their best. Are they going to be able to do that next week versus the Lions? I don't know. I don't think so, But regardless, they're going to need him to continue to get going, and he was solid in this game as well. The Packers defense probably had their worst game of the season here, and they lost Jair Alexander late to what looked like some sort of calf injury or Achilles or something. I don't know what his status is at the moment, but he did go down, and I don't believe he came back in because I know he didn't come back in because the Jags never got the ball again, but he got hurt with something. Yeah, there's no update on him. So, yeah, he got hurt with something. We'll see. They definitely need him back next week. They definitely need Jordan Love back next week. And they escaped this game where it looked like they maybe should have lost at some points.
They do escape at back-to-back weeks with a game-winning field goal for Brandon McManus. Malik Willis comes in and plays decent enough to get the job done, finishes 4 for 5 with a touchdown, has the big throw to Jaden Reed for a completion of 56 yards to really kind of put them in big field goal range to get the win. Tucker Kraft, you said it, or it's National Tight Ends Day. There was a lot of great tight end performances. There was one here with Tucker Kraft, 3 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. He's been very good for the Packers. They have just so many good weapons between Kraft, Dobbs, Reed, Watson, Wicks, Bo Melton's solid. And then they have multiple running backs that they can give the ball to. Just a really deep team. We see it here. A lot of guys get catches. Dobbs has 3, Reed has 2, Watson has 4, Wicks has 2. They pick up, Josh Jacobs picks up 127 yards on the ground. They have 170 yards on the ground total. Jacobs gets 2 touchdowns. Their offense played well. Their defense, I expected a little bit more from. We'd seen them look better and better week by week. But the Jaguars get 27 points. Trevor Lawrence throws for more than 300 yards, does have a bad interception that hurt. Tank Bigsby on the ground again for the Jags was pretty good, 78 yards, averaged 4.3 yards per carry. Concerning for the Jags here is all 3 of the top receivers get hurt in this game. Brian Thomas Jr. with a chest injury, Christian Kirk, and Gabe Davis all got injured in this game. They still have Evan Engram. He picked up the touchdown to tie the game. Just defense couldn't get it done late. And the Packers get a win to move to 6-2, and the top of the NFC North has a lot of teams.
Yeah, I feel like on National Tight Ends Day, they like genuinely do force the ball to the tight ends. It
Yeah.
feels like that's the way. Like we saw Dawson Knox, the great Kyle Pitts, just to name a few. But it was a big day for those two. But moving on here to
Shout out,
the
Brown.
Browns beating the Ravens 29-24. Speaking of Cleveland,
Oh,
Cleveland
man.
stand up. Jameis comes in and dominates this Ravens secondary. We said this may happen because he has really no film on him and he hasn't really played in a while, but 334, 3 touchdowns, no picks is just insane. He carved up this Ravens defense. Another mid game from Nick Chubb, but he's ramping up. The O-line is still bad. I don't really hold that against him. He's going to get back to full form. I do truly believe that. The Browns defense had a great game. They held the Ravens late in this one. They held them early and they held them late as far as forcing those turnovers on downs, and that really helped them. The Ravens win the turnover battle in this game, but still find a way to lose. It's tough to do that in this league. This is one of those games that if you're the Ravens, you needed to win. The Browns are a bad team. They have their backup quarterback in, the guy that was their emergency quarterback a week ago, and you're not able to get this win in a game that you were up 10-6 at halftime and you still end up blowing it. This is one of the games that was holding their strength of schedule down, and now you lose this one, your strength of schedule goes up, and now you're sitting at 5-3. Lack of a run game for this one with Derrick Henry really just stymied the Ravens. They weren't able to get much done after he really just wasn't able to get to the edge like he's been able to. He had a tough first game, and this game, the first game of the season, and this game looked a lot like that first game of the season, but I don't hold that against the Ravens. I think they're going to be able to figure it out. For the Ravens though, they got Broncos, Bengals, Steelers as their next 3. If you're the Ravens, you got to go out there and get 2 of those games at least. I think they will. I still believe in the Ravens. This was just one of those games that they let slip away.
Yeah, this is just kind of a classic Ravens loss at this point. They lose the games that they should win by a lot. We saw it last year in the game that they played in Cleveland. They had a big lead and blew it late and let the Browns come back with Deshaun Watson. Their offense wasn't as good today as it has been all season. Lamar still throws for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns, but the Ravens only get 124 yards on the ground, which is not what we've seen this season so far from the Ravens. We usually see a lot more than that. Zay Flowers has a big game with 7 catches for 115 yards, but there was just drops on both sides of the ball that really hurt him. We saw Rashad Bateman drop a deep pass early in the game, And at the end of the game, Kyle Hamilton had a chance to put the game away and dropped a sure interception. Jameis Winston said he was praying right when he let go of the ball that the Ravens wouldn't intercept it, and he got it. And then Jameis Winston goes down and throws the game-winning touchdown into just a beautiful play. Jameis Winston throws for 300 plus yards. Deshaun Watson hadn't thrown for 300 yards in any of his 19 starts with the Browns. Winston he was great in this game. I mean, he was great pregame as well with all the different speeches we saw. Play for the name on your helmet. Oh wait, we don't have a decal on
Yeah.
our helmet.
Dude, those were everyone. There was like 40 of them, and they were all great.
The interview with NFL Network or whatever. I don't know if it was CBS or Fox, but he was hilarious in it as well. They end 5-game losing streak is end here with Jameis Winston. He's got the first 4-letter wins.
First 4
That's
letter.
all he does. Just a huge win for Cleveland to just kind of get some happiness back in football. Nick Chubb gets 52 yards on the ground. Hasn't looked great so far, but he's still got to get his legs under him. The only bad thing that happened with the Browns in this game was JOK does get hurt and had to get carted off and taken to a local hospital for a neck injury. But they did say he has movement of all extremities, so hopefully he will be all right.
Yeah, I'm already like fantasizing about like they keep Jameis Winston, he goes on a run, they win some games, and then they just say forget about Deshaun when he comes back, and we just rock with Jameis as like the quarterback going forward in Cleveland. That would be fantastic. I would love to see Jameis just get an actual shot as a starter, not just like a backup that comes in for injury.
I know, and it's crazy that even when he's in the Saints, I don't think he's started a game in over 2 years, which just doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't, but he's here now.
With how long he's been a backup, I don't know.
It's I think it's time for him to get that Geno Smith second chance. I think it's time.
Yeah.
I would love to see him not right back on the haters. But moving on here to Patriots, Jets. The Patriots win this game 25-22. The Jets may officially be dead.
Put him in there. Put him in there.
I mean, I didn't update the list this week because I don't think any teams deserve to be added. But if there's a team that's close, it's got to be the New York Jets, unfortunately. I know they tend to lose in New England, but this is unacceptable. The Jets offense has to be able to score more than 22 points. They had way too many stalled drives in this game, and they have way too much talent to be only putting up 22 against the Patriots. I'm sorry, they just do. The Jets defense, though, is also really shocking here. They allow 18 second half points to Jacoby Brissett. One of the touchdowns you could put on special teams, but they still let it up. They allowed 12 plays for 70 yards on the last drive of the game for the Patriots to go win it on them. If you are the Jets, you are the one of the best defenses in football. You cannot let this happen against Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots. Drake May, of course, gets hurt in this game. Rodgers does not throw a pick, but this offense isn't nearly as electric as we expected, especially getting Devontae Adams. They're still not looking good. Breece Hall ran it a bit better in this game, but they're still struggling to run the ball. This Jets team, honestly, is one of the most disappointing teams I've seen in a while. I picked them to finish second in the AFC, and we're sitting here after week 8, and they're 2-6. Do they have a bye week coming up? Because they desperately need a bye week. There might not be a team in football that needs it more than them right now. Not next week. Okay, after next week they have a bye week, so
they need Rodgers to go on that ayahuasca trip ASAP.
They're gonna need it. It's not looking good for the Jets.
No, it's not looking good for the Jets at all. This has to be rock bottom for them, almost as a franchise or whatever. At this point, this is bad. You give up all your asset, all your kind of future. You're putting it all on Aaron Rodgers. You fire Robert Saleh, and since they've been 0-3. And their offense looked better in the last 2 games, doesn't look better today. As a coaching front, they looked terrible in this game. They used 3 timeouts in almost their first 2 possessions in the first half. That was just embarrassing to see. Rodgers, 233 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, has to be better. Devontae Adams was put only 4 catches for 54 yards. Christian Gonzalez played great defense on him in this game. And for the Patriots, Drake May misses most of this game with the concussion. Had to leave early. He finished 3 for 6 for 23 yards. Jacoby Brissett comes in and plays solid. Doesn't turn the ball over. They didn't have to do too much in this game. Just let the Jets make the mistakes. Pretty quiet game. Ramondre Stevenson gets 20 carries for 48 yards. We did see Drake May have a nice 17-yard touchdown run. He was looking solid while he was playing. So just an embarrassing game from the Jets. I don't know where you go from here because at this point you almost have to win out. The AFC playoff hunt's going to be very close, and I don't know if seven losses gets it done, to be honest. So I don't know.
Yeah, my list has not changed from last week. It's still Pats, Browns, Titans, Jags, Raiders, Panthers, Giants, Saints. But for the maybes, the Jets are now in on the maybes, and they're right on the end. They are a loss away from being in. Same thing with the Bengals. They're right on the maybes, loss away from being in. The Dolphins remain on the maybes. But the only change this week is I'm taking the Rams and the Cardinals off the maybes because they're both in good spots. The Cardinals sitting at 4-4. We'll talk about them in a bit. We already spoke about the Rams at 3-4. So both those teams are moving forward, but we'll talk about those Bengals that we just spoke of. This was truly a sad game from the Bengals. They completely lost their offensive flow that they had going earlier on in the season when their defense was screwing them. The reason just stems from their run game. They just haven't gotten it going at all. First half, they looked fine, but they turned it over 3 times in the second half, and that was just killer for them. We knew the Bengals defense was ass and they were overperforming the past couple of weeks, but they were just bad here. They were really, really bad. They allow seven of 8 of the Eagles' drives to end in points. The Eagles' offense looked really smooth in this one. That's super encouraging from them. Saquon doesn't have a monster day, but they looked good in this one. The Eagles' offense hasn't looked smooth all season, and that says a lot about the Bengals' defense here. I mean, the Eagles' offense hasn't looked smooth all season. That says a lot about the Bengals' defense. It was good to see the Eagles' secondary have a good game here, especially against a great offense in the Bengals. They didn't have T. Higgins today, and that made a serious impact. He's had a great year for the Bengals when he's been healthy, and when they haven't had them, they just haven't looked like the same team. But the Eagles are a sneaky 5-2. I don't think they're as good as their record shows, but they are a sneaky 5-2 right now, and they have winnable games versus Jacksonville and Dallas coming up. So the Eagles could definitely be sitting at 7-2 in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Eagles dominate this game late to steal a win in Cincinnati. Jalen Hurts looked pretty good in this game. Throws for 236 yards and a touchdown. Picks up 3 tush-push touchdowns. Great game from him. Saquon Barkley gets 100+ yards on the ground. Just unfortunately, when you get tackled at the one, someone else is going to steal your touchdowns in this offense. The Eagles' offense has been a lot better in recent weeks, especially when they are able to have the duo of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown together. Those two are one of the, or if not the best wide receiver duo in football. They are phenomenal. Smith has a 45-yard touchdown. A.J. Brown gets 5 catches for 84 yards. They were great, and the Bengals defense, which has been playing very good in recent weeks, was unable to stop them in this game. And what's been concerning for the Bengals more than that is in the last couple weeks, their offense hasn't been able to do too much, and we see that again in this game, only putting up 17 points. Again, they have pretty much no run game. Chase Brown gets 12 carries for only 32 yards. Zach Moss is pretty much the clear RB2 at this point. He only gets 5 carries. He only gets 11 yards. Mike Gesicki on National Tight Ends Day gets 7 catches for 73 yards. Just all around, though, the Bengals offense disappointing again, and you're down to 3-5, and now you're really putting yourself in a rough spot where you're going to have to win a lot of these games, and you have to start beating some of the bad teams, or yeah, you're going to start beating some of the good teams. They have a lot of winnable games on their schedule. They just got to actually get it done, and we'll see if they can. But got to be better, especially at home. I think they're 0-4 at home so far this year.
Which is just unbelievable. I don't know how you can even pull that off, but the Bengals are definitely looking dormy here. Moving on though, like I said, the Cardinals, they get a huge win against Miami 28-27 on a game-winning field goal. The Dolphins kind of choked this one away late. Their defense had a really, really good first half, but they give up 17 points on the last 3 drives of this game to the Cardinals. The Cardinals offense finally hit a rhythm late in this one. They haven't looked good for the greater part of the last month, 5 weeks now. And Kyler looked a lot more comfortable in this game, especially late. Him and Trey McBride have a good connection. We've seen that early on in the year. But this game, it started to look like him and Marv found a groove. It started out with Marv complaining early again, but they end up finding him multiple times. He gets in the end zone. He had a good game for them. It's encouraging to see this performance from the Cardinals offense against a good defense, even if they didn't run the ball too well. The Cardinals offense, like I said, was struggling a lot, and Miami's defense has been great. So they didn't run the ball, which has been their strength all year. and they still are able to have a successful offensive game passing. That's super encouraging to see from them. The Dolphins, on the other hand, they looked immensely better offensively with Tua. Winning this one would have given them a good shot to compete. They'd be sitting at 3-4 instead of 2-5, which is a huge difference with their quarterback coming back. But now they're starting to dig themselves in a hole. They were great though offensively, 11 for 15 on third down. They looked efficient the whole game. They just needed to run the clock out late on that last possession. They couldn't do it, and the Cardinals come down and score. But the Cardinals are now a sneaky 4-4. They're starting to compete again. They get a huge win at home on Monday Night Football, and then they go on a short week, travel all the way to Miami from Phoenix, or from Glendale, I should say, and they go and they get a win on the road. This is a very impressive win to me, in my opinion, for the Cardinals.
I agree. I think this is a very impressive win. Come back late to get a win in the week that Call of Duty drops as well for Kyler Murray. So big for him there to kind of prove that maybe he can perform when Call of Duty's out, especially that he's in the game. But they win back-to-back games. They've gotten themselves back in the hunt at 4-4. They're getting the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. They do in this game 6 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown. And again, the tight end has a big game. Trey McBride, 9 catches, 124 yards. He was phenomenal. They didn't have too much of a run game this week. It's been up and down for them, but Kyler Murray in the pass game was phenomenal. For the Dolphins in their first game back with Tua, the offense had its best game of the season. Finally put up more than 20 points. They put up 27 points. Tua looked solid, looked confident, 234 yards and a touchdown, finished 28 of 38. Him playing really helps us a run game as well. Their offense as a whole is just better. Achane finishes with 97 yards on only 10 carries. You see Mostert get 2 touchdowns as well. They finally were able to get the ball to Tyreek Hill, 6 catches for 72 yards. Jalen Waddle has to step up. He finishes with 4 catches for 45 yards, but had a really bad drop. This Dolphins team is not dead, but they have to figure it out. They're 2-5 now. You have Tua. You're going to have to win a lot of these games. There's a lot of teams kind of that are one loss away from maybe being done. So at some point we'll have to see. But they have winnable games on their schedule. They got the Patriots, still Raiders, but late in the season they have some tough ones. So we'll see what the Dolphins can do if they can run the table. But they're in a rough spot now.
They are moving on here to another team that's kind of starting to get in a rough spot here with the Buccaneers. They lose to the Falcons at home, 31-26. Common theme from the Bucs here. They score some late points. They make the game look a little bit better, but they didn't have much of a chance to win this one. Baker does Baker things in this one. 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's just where he is at this point in his career. He's able to do it. Wow, Debo took that one to the house. I think it's coming back, but he's able to throw a ton of touchdowns, throw for a ton of yards, be super efficient offensively, but he does have those turnovers, and that hurts him immensely. The Bucs really struggled to get any of this three-headed monster going with Rashad White, Sean Tucker, and Bucky Irving. They really struggled to get any of those guys going. Cade Otton seems like the new number 1 target now for Baker without Evans or Godwin, with them both out with injuries. The Bucs offense was actually moving the ball super well in this one, but 3 turnovers will kill you in any game, and that's really what just got the best of him here. Kirk, it's a big-time bounce-back game here with 4 touchdowns after losing. 4 touchdowns, no picks, I should say, after losing last week at home to Seattle. Big. What?
Breaking news, Christian Kirk out for the season with a fractured collarbone.
Yeah, that's a tough loss for Jacksonville, but I guess that's big for Brian Thomas Jr. But they're probably not big for him because it's literally just him and Evan Ingram now. But as we predicted, tough game on the ground here for Atlanta, but they aired it out very well against this weak secondary. Falcons took care of the ball and they won a game they absolutely needed to win. They're now 3-0 on the road this year, which is huge for them. And for the Falcons, they got Cowboys, Saints, Broncos, Chargers as their next 4. They can easily get 3 of those games and be sitting at 8-4 after 12 games. So we'll see what happens with them, but I think they're in a spot where they could win some games that they should. They just can't drop any of these games to bad teams.
They're in a very good spot. They beat the Buccaneers twice now this year, so they have the tiebreaker over them regardless. Kirk Cousins, second time he's played this Buccaneers defense, and second time he's really carved them up. 276 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. National Tight Ends Day, Kyle Pitts has his best game of the season, 4 catches, 91 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was great. Darnell Mooney was very good as well, 5 catches for 92 yards. They ran the ball all right with Bijan. He has 63 yards on the ground. Jesse Bates defensively for the Falcons was phenomenal. Forced fumble recovery, and an interception for him. He was continues to be one of the better safeties in football. For the Buccaneers, you're missing your top two receivers, and that's one of the best receiver duo as well in football. So you got to have guys step up, and who steps up? The tight end, Cade Otton, on National Tight Ends Day, gets 9 catches for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was good. Raheem Jarrett has the most, or second most targets for a receiver. Jalen McMillan has the most targets, so maybe he'll be their wide receiver one. He only gets 4 catches, though. Their defense in recent weeks has struggled. They have to step up if this team wants to get back in the playoff hunt or in contention to win the division. But like you said, the turnovers is really what killed the Buccaneers overall. You got to limit those, and their defense just has to show up if they want to get back in it.
Okay, moving on here to the next slate of games, starting with the Bills beating the Seahawks 31-10. This is a very impressive game from the Bills here, I have to say. Completely shut down a very solid Seattle offense. Although they did not have DK Metcalf, they're still a solid group. They run it pretty well. They have great weapons, but Seattle just was not able to get anything going offensively. They couldn't run the ball at all, which is very encouraging from the Bills defense to be able to stop their run. We know that they're not great against the pass, but if you stop the run, it makes your pass defense a lot easier. They were able to do that here. Both teams had 11 plus penalties in this one. Neither team was able to do much. James Cook is healthy now and looked very good in this one. Josh Allen throws his first pick of the year. He was very solid throughout this game, regardless of that pick, but he does finally get one. It was about time. I think you said that this was going to be the game if
Yeah.
it was the first pick, so there you go. Good prediction from you. But Coleman's starting to get pretty involved in this offense. Ever since Amari Cooper came 2 games ago, he's really starting to get more targets. He was the week before that as well, but they're starting to get him more involved now. Shakir was great in this one for them now that he's fully healthy. But the Bills are now 6-2. They have Dolphins, Colts as their next 2 games. That's 2 very winnable games. They could be sitting at 8-2. I still am not super confident if we're talking playoffs, but I'll keep saying that I think they're going to probably clean up some of these games and end up with a good seed.
They probably will. They dominated on both sides of the ball in this game. Offensively, James Cook, phenomenal on the ground. In the receiving game, Khalil Shakir gets 9 catches for 107 yards. Keon Coleman has a big game. Both their tight ends have solid games on National Tight Ends Day. Very impressive from the Bills' offense to be able to dominate the Seahawks defense that had been looking better and better every week. They had 2 drives of 90-plus yards in just the first half, controlled the time of possession. They had the ball for 38 minutes. They outgained the Seahawks 445 to 233. Just a dominating performance from the Bills on both sides of the ball. Disappointing from Geno Smith and the Seahawks again. They couldn't get the run game going in this game. This team struggles when they can't get the run going. They don't get it at all. Kenneth Walker, 9 carries, 12 yards, barely over 1 yard per carry. Very disappointing when they can't pass the ball, they can't do much. They were really missing DK Metcalf in this, like you said. Coming off of a big win, you just don't want to have this big of a down performance. Luckily for them, their division has been on the weaker side so far, and they are still first in the NFC West. But just what a dominant performance by the Bills. I shouldn't have bet against them.
You did bet against them? I thought you picked the Bills.
No, I bet against them in this game.
Oh, good. I know I did. But moving on here, the Chargers beating the Saints 26-8. Chargers defense completely smothered New Orleans as we expected. They were not able to do much in this game. It turns out that Spencer Rattler is not good.
Yeah,
Who would have thought,
shocker.
right? I mean,
Shocker.
who would have thought? Saints were 2 for 16 on third down in this game, which is just abysmal. Hayner came in for Rattler, and he did look a little bit better. He'll probably be the starter, I assume, going forward now. I can't imagine they go another game with Rattler at the helm. Olave has a good day, 8 for 107. You said it last week, how he ends up always just getting smacked. Again in this one, he just gets smacked. It's crazy how that happens to him, but another game.
He's got to put on the Guardian cap, man.
He does, bro. He actually does. But another game where the Chargers don't run the ball too well, but this time they found a way to score. They ran it well for every game of this season so far until last week against the Cardinals. They didn't run it well, and they weren't able to score in the red zone, and that hurt them. This game, they didn't run it well, but they're able to get their passing yards like they did last week, and they were able to score in the red zone, which is huge for them. Glad McConkey had a great game here. He gets 6 catches for 111 and 2 touchdowns. That was huge. Definitely want to see more from this Chargers offense going forward, but their defense is finally starting to play to its talent level. We've been talking for years now. It's Bosa, Mack, James, Samuel. Like they have a lot of players, a lot of guys on this Chargers defense, and they just were never able to put it together with Staley. But now that Harbaugh's in, this unit is just playing really, really well. I know they're playing against the Saints here, but they played well all season. So I want to give a ton of credit to that defense. They're finally getting it done. That was like the number one thing that was so frustrating to us when we were talking about the Chargers all year last year is they have so much talent and they don't use it. They're able to use it this year, and we're starting to see it, as I said, at 4-3. I definitely want to see more from their offense, but like I said, they're getting it done. Chargers have Browns, Titans, and Bengals next. Those are three winnable games. They can make a little run here. I think they at least win two of those three, and that puts them at 6-4, which is at a good spot. I know there's a tight AFC race, like we said, but they're going to be in it most likely.
They most likely are, and they look great in this game. I said, I don't know if it was in the preview for this week or if it's in the recap last week, I wanted them to get the ball to Lad McConkey more. I wanted him to kind of prove that he could be the wide receiver one here, and he does in this game, gets 2 touchdowns, his best game as a rookie so far. One of Justin Herbert's best game of the season so far as he throws for 2 touchdowns, no picks, almost 300 yards. They played Charger football, just long drives, methodical drives. They bring in a fullback, Scott Matlock, a great name for a fullback. Nothing better than seeing a fullback. And when you have a fullback, you can usually run the ball better than other teams. They didn't have a great rushing game in this game overall, only 4.2 yards per carry, but solid nevertheless for the Saints. I mean, ever since week 2, the offense just hasn't been the same. I mean, they're missing Derek Carr. That's one of the big reasons in the recent weeks, but still just not good at all. 6-game losing streak now after starting 2-0 and looking very good. Just disappointing. I think they have to be almost a dead team at this point. Craziest part is they also are what? It's like negative 70 million in cap. They have the worst cap in football.
Every year, though. They have the worst
They have
cap
it. I don't
every
know
year.
how they have it every year. I don't know if they like just decide to, if it's like penalties or what. I have no idea how they have it, but
It's got to be penalties, I would assume.
just,
Probably like paid Michael Thomas somehow. So,
oh yeah.
but
Cam Jordan probably still making a ton,
yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
but yeah.
I think even
Just,
Derek Carr is making a good amount.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know how they could afford to pay him in the first place.
Tyrann
But
Mathieu just got a new contract, so yeah, they could be the worst team in the league. They'd still be the most cap
yeah.
that team.
Doesn't make any sense. Don't know how they do it. And it kind of just proves that the cap is fake, in my opinion. But
Yeah, no, it definitely is. They're just going to restructure a couple contracts and be fine. They'll restructure Taysom Hill's contract again, and then they'll be fine. But moving on here to the Chiefs beating the Raiders 27-20. Another not pretty one for the Chiefs, but they moved to 7-0 regardless. Kareem Hunt has his first bad game as a new Chief, but he still does find the end zone in this one. Kelsey is fully back. 10 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. He had a rough past or first few weeks, I should say, but ever since Rashee Rice got hurt, he's fully involved in this offense, and they're starting to dominate with him. Another dominant game for the Chiefs' run defense. We know the Raiders are one of, if not the worst, running team in the league. It's them and the Cowboys, and then it's like the Chiefs and the Lions for the best defensive teams. So this is a bad matchup going in, and then you have 14 carries for 15 yards for Alexander Madison, which is just horrible. Gardner Minshew wasn't that bad for the Raiders in this one. He's better than AOC has been the past few weeks. He ends up finishing with, what does he finish with? 209, 24 for 30 completion, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He was solid for them in this one. The Chiefs offense just looked a lot better today. They went 12 for 16 on third down, 3 for 4 in the red zone. That really won them this game. At the end of the day, they just need to make sure they could run it consistently and cut out those turnovers, especially from Mahomes on these picks, and they're going to be in a great spot. And it's one of those things where that's all they got to do. And if we get to the playoffs and Mahomes isn't throwing interceptions, this is going to be a tough team to beat.
yeah, it's going to be tough. Yeah, they're going to be a tough team to beat. 7-0, especially when they play in Allegiant Stadium. They're now 5-0 versus the Raiders at Allegiant Stadium, 6-0 overall with the Super Bowl victory. Mahomes has a solid game, throws for 262 yards. He is the fastest quarterback in NFL history to 30,000 yards in only 103 games. He got the ball to Travis Kelce a lot on National Tight Ends Day, like you said. It's been a theme in almost every game that the tight end has had a big game. Their offense was phenomenal. For the Raiders, Brock Bowers, the tight end, was their leading receiver, 5 catches for 58 yards. But their offense continues to have its struggles, especially running the football. I mean, 33 yards on the ground. That's not going to get it done. We've talked about that going into the season. How are they going to run the football? And during the season, they've yet to show it at all. That's really going to hurt your offense, and there's not much you can do with Gardner Minshew at quarterback if you don't have just a little threat of a run game. Chiefs win this game as expected. They're up to 7-0 now, the last undefeated team left. Disappointed that it was only by 7 points. I thought it would be more, but a win is a win.
Okay, moving on to our second to last game here. The Panthers lose to the Broncos 28-14. The Broncos improved to 5-3 now. Bryce Young gets the start for Andy Dalton here for the Panthers. He couldn't do too much versus this great defense. There was no run game to help him out at all with Chuba Hubbard. He looked solid early in this one, though. He had a good first drive, a good third drive, I think it was too. I don't exactly remember, but he looked solid to start this game, which I was impressed by from him. The Panthers defense, though, is just so bad, and they made Bo Nix look like a Hall of Famer in this one. It was really crazy. 28 for 37, 284, 3 touchdowns, no picks. They made him look really good. Cortland Sutton goes for 8 for 100 in this one. The Broncos were 4 for 5 in the red zone. They looked really good offensively. This Broncos team really isn't all that offensively. They have a great defense. They have a pretty good secondary. Their run defense can be better, but their secondary carries them. And you don't expect them to win against a lot of teams that can score a ton of points or have great defenses. But the Panthers are none of that. At this point, it's that one win for them against the Raiders just makes the Raiders look worse and worse by the week. They're tanking at this point, in my opinion, I should say. And the Panthers defense is going to make any offense look good. So they're essentially a bye week at this point. And the Broncos move to 5-3. Coming up for the Broncos, though, they have Baltimore and Kansas City the next 2 weeks. They're going into Baltimore, into Kansas City. That's going to be a tough two for them. They probably come out of that stretch 5-5, but even at 5-5, they got a decent shot to be in that race with the Chargers. They're going to have to win that Chargers game and win some games they shouldn't win. But like we've been saying all year, their secondary is so good, their defense, and they're fairly well coached. Bo Nix hasn't looked horrible, so they're going to be a scrappy team.
They're going to be a scrappy team up to 5-3 now, easily in the playoff hunt. They've been very good defensively, especially like you said, Bo Nix, 3 touchdown passes, runs for a touchdown as well. Got the ball to Cortland Sutton a lot. His first 100-yard game since week two of 2022. He finishes with exactly 100 yards on the dot. He was great. Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin kind of split the carries. Didn't have too much of a run game, but they don't have to. The Panthers defense stinks. Bryce Young, one of the better performances for him. Definitely his best performance of the season. He's 0-3 now during the season. 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Had the nice drive to start the game and had a nice drive late in the game. 98 yards, 10-play drive. He's down to 2-17 in his career, but this was improvement. I'd like to see him start again next week and try to grow off of it, but we'll see if that happens. I doubt it. I bet they put Andy Dalton back in. He got into a car accident early in the week, and that's why Bryce Young started this game. I guess Andy Dalton was unable to grip the football correctly, so we'll see if he's back next week.
Okay, finishing off our recap here with the Commanders beating the Bears 18-15 on a Hail Mary to win the game. The Bears didn't deserve to win this game. They never should have been any spot to win this one. They start off the game punt, downs, punt to start the game. It's very hard to win like that. Luckily, their defense was so good against this beat up Commanders offense with Jaden Daniels, who did play in this game, which was why the line moved. The Commanders ended up finishing us 1.5 favorites, I believe, on this one. But the Bears just couldn't move the ball at all. They were able to keep the Commanders out of the end zone, though. The Commanders only get 3 field goals in the first half, and outside of that Hail Mary, they only had field goals for the entirety of the game. Caleb Williams was not good in this one. I will say, I want to put a lot of it on Shane Waldron because the play calling was atrocious in this game. There was one play, I can't remember what point. It was at the end of the game. It was on that last drive where they scored, where it was like 3rd and 5. It was right before they threw the pass that got the PI drawn. They run a QB draw or a QB power 3rd and 5, and it got completely stuffed. That was just an absolute brain dead call. Swift ends up getting a big run in this one. He finishes with 129 and a touchdown. He's been a lot better the past few weeks. Caleb Williams only has the 1 turnover with the fumble that he had, but Yeah, the Bears did not deserve to be in this game. The Bears are now 0-3 on the road right now, with their only non-Soldier Field win being in London against the Jags. So the Bears, we talked about it. Their strength of schedule was really, really bad up until this point, and for the rest of the season, it's going to be really good. This was one they had a chance to steal with that late PI that basically gave them the game. All they needed to do was not let the Commanders get a Hail Mary, and they were not able to do that. So all the credit in the world to the Commanders. It's one of the hardest plays. It gave me some Aaron Rodgers PTSD, but Bears are starting to come back down to earth a little bit, and they need to figure it out. They thought they got their play caller and Waldron to start this year. They didn't. If this trend continues with the Bears and they're not able to move the ball, even though Caleb Williams at times looks super talented, I think we could see a head coaching offensive coordinator clear out this year.
Oh, I think they have to do that. Commanders win on a Hail Mary, an incredible play, just an absolute breakdown by the Bears. Noah Brown gets the catch. Did you see the fan view of the play by any chance with
I did
Tyreek
not.
Stevenson?
I did not.
Go look it up. I was hoping you hadn't seen it because I want to get your live reaction to it. Just look up Tyreek Stevenson into Twitter. It's going all over Twitter right now. It's just an embarrassing play. Let's get your live reaction to this.
Well, I gotta find it first. It would have been a lot easier if you just sent it to me.
Oh, I mean, I'll send it to you. I'm looking at it right now. If you just look at his name, it's. I mean, that's
Okay,
all over.
no, okay, it's damn, this video's long as hell. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. He did get into position though, did he not?
No, he hit the. He was going to hit the ball.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, I'm seeing the play now. Oh, oh man.
Tyreek
That's crazy.
Stevenson doesn't see the snap. He's taunting the Commander's sideline, doing celebrations. The snap happens. He still has his back to the play. Then he finally runs into the play. He's the guy who's supposed to be on Noah Brown, allegedly. Goes into
Oh,
the scrum and hits the ball. Noah Brown catches it for a Hail Mary. Just an absolute embarrassing display for Tyreek Stevenson.
they've been hyping him up for weeks too.
No, they've had years.
Yeah.
Just absolutely absurd. Bears were dominated for 3.5 quarters in this game. They offense was able to get going late. Caleb Williams makes a couple throws to DJ Moore. They got in position to win twice. They end up getting the lead late. Should have won this game with that lead, but they blow it. The Commanders win a game that they were dominated, really, offensively. Just a huge win for the Commanders. Austin Seibert, he was great again. Does kick the dirt instead of the football on one play, which did hurt him. But nevertheless, good. Jayden Daniels throws for 326 yards. They were moving the ball very well in this game, just couldn't get the ball in the end zone. That's kind of been a theme with the Commanders a little bit. They got to start getting the ball in the end zone more and stop settling for field goals. But huge win for the Commanders at 6-2 now, firmly in. Well, it's them versus the Eagles right now for that division. We'll see how that continues to go, but very exciting time to be a Commanders fan because stuff like this is what happens to Team of Destiny, and you like to see it.
Especially after last year at this time, they were a fire sale.
Yeah.
They traded
Sam
Sweat.
Howell couldn't throw.
Yes, and now look at them. They're at the top of the East, and they have the Eagles on their tail right now, and we'll see what happens with the Cowboys as they currently lead this game 10-3 against the 49ers. But they are at the top of the division. They look strong so far, and this is with Jayden Daniels, who was beat up. Jayden Daniels also made a great play on that Hail Mary. Like he was getting there were only 3 Bears pass rushers, but he got himself to the point where he could step into his throw, and he just gets it done.
And it was, I don't know, did you see the Colts Hail Mary? I was very intrigued by what the Texans did on that play. They lined up.
They only sent the Colts got sacked. Yeah.
They only sent 3 guys, but they put them all on the left side to kind of just confuse the Colts O-line a little bit, and they end up getting a sack just rushing 3 guys. You see the Bears do the normal put 1 and 1.
Yeah.
3 down.
I didn't see they lined up 3 on one side, but I did.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and
that play.
It just it threw off the Colts O-line, and the Colts O-line struggled in the game overall, but just another lapse there where they get up a sack.
Okay, moving on to our studs and duds for the week. My stud, by the way, Jake Bates 7 for 7 on extra points today. Good for him, but he also hasn't missed a field goal yet. But my stud is Khalif Raymond, who has 190 punt return yards. He was just 17 yards short from the all-time record, I believe, at 207. And he had one that he returned far, but they called it back for a hold. So he almost did have the record in this one. He gets a punt return touchdown. He gets 2 catches. He also gets a receiving touchdown. And he was the absolute MVP in this game. You could attribute a lot of those Lions' long drives to his great returns. 5 for 190. He was phenomenal. I got Khalif Raymond as my stud.
Yeah, for my stud of the week, I think I'm gonna go with a guy who we've been pretty critical of all season. He has a great game here. A lot of them were tush push touchdowns, but I'll give it to Jalen Hurts. Throws for 236 yards and a touchdown. Does get the 3 rushing touchdowns, but the Eagles' offense has looked the best it's looked all season, and a good game for him and big win.
Okay,
Actually, you know what? I take it back. I take it back. I didn't think. I've been saying it. I don't know why I didn't have this written down as studs, but my stud of the week is just the tight end position.
There you go.
The tight end position is my stud of the week with
How
all of the
about
guys who went off.
Just say Dawson Knox and then the great Kyle Pitts, just to
Yeah.
name a few.
just to name a few.
That's what the graphic needs to be.
Yeah.
Dawson Knox, the great Kyle Pitts, just to name a few. That's your stud of the week.
Yeah. We see Trey McBride have a big week. Kincaid, Cade Otton has a huge week. Tucker Kraft, Zach Ertz,
Laporta,
David
Brock
Njoku,
Wright.
Sam Laporta, Brock Wright. Travis Kelce has a big week. Brock Bowers has a normal week. Tyler Conklin gets a touchdown. The tight end position overall was just phenomenal this week. So on National Tight Ends Day, I'll give it to the tight ends. Sorry, Jalen Hurts.
The big one. It's like Thanksgiving. It's always on a Sunday. Like Thanksgiving's always on a Thursday.
Yeah.
There's no specific date. It's just it must be like week 8 Sunday or something. I don't know the exact day. It's just always on a Sunday.
And George Kittle's always one of the main factors, and here he is in prime time.
Yeah, we'll see. But my dud of the week, Caleb Williams. I think this is like the second time I've done this, but I'm gonna do it any chance I can. 41% completion, just was not good in this game. Had a lot of opportunities where he could have thrown the ball away. He had a couple sacks in this one where he probably should have thrown the ball away, and he almost got gifted one late. Still couldn't get it done. I got to go with Caleb Williams. He's unfortunately been disappointing so far. Actually, I don't want to say he's been disappointing so far, but he hasn't, like, he's had some bad games. I'll say that.
Yeah, for my dud of the week, I'm going to double it up on the Bears, and I'm just going to go with Tyreek Stevenson.
There we go. I was thinking of switching mine to him after I saw that video.
Just an embarrassing. You got to be locked in. The game's not over until the clock strikes double zeros or quad zeros. I don't know. Just a terrible, terrible decision to celebrate like that, and then end up being the guy I think who hits the ball and allows Noah Brown to get the catch. Embarrassing, and just can't let that happen.
And Kittle on tight ends day, bad hold there from him. But
He'll be back.
that will about do it for this episode of the Engage A podcast. We will be back on Wednesday to recap this Sunday Night Football game we're speaking of, as well as the Monday Night Football game tomorrow. We will then recap this past week in college football. It was a good one, and then get you ready for week 9 of the NFL season, as well as talking about any trade stuff that's coming up, because we're getting dangerously close to the deadline. We will actually be recording right after the deadline on Tuesday, so next Tuesday. So that'll be great for us. We'll be able to talk about those in a week from now. But regardless, hit all the links in our description for Spotify, TikTok, social media, and all that good stuff. Thank you for making it this far in the video. Leave a like if you did, and we'll see everybody in the next one.